I think the example that embodies this the best was actually told me by a company that I visited at the end of last year, and really just called it the Hello World example. And what they were trying to do is they were trying to analyze not just their development process, but also their deployment process. So they were really taking an outside look in at how efficient they were. And what they found was they just took the most simple of example, in this case the Hello World example, right? So developers know that just pick your language and make it print out or show on the web, Hello World. So that application, the woman that developed it, it only took obviously an hour, right, to develop it. But what they found is then the next part of the test was to get that application up and running on that company's public infrastructure so that customers and users outside that company could access it. That part took over 60 days, right? So for an hour to develop, 60 days to get a simple application deployed. And really what you want is a model like this. You want a model of continuous deployment. So you really need to get the tail of all that complex application deployment out so that you're really focused on developers who will get an agile model. And that was really what the inspiration was behind OpenShift. So OpenShift wasn't Red Hat saying we need this thing called a platform as a service, because to be honest, 3 years ago, I don't think we even knew what a platform as a service was. But what we did know was that there was a great opportunity to make our developers and other developers ridiculously productive when they're using private cloud and public cloud. And so what we wanted to do is that, we see it, developers are developing over here, and then IT is actually deploying over here. And what we want to do is marry those two environments, right? Get IT and developers to agree on a common platform, not just for developing, but for deploying those applications. And to us, that's sort of the spirit of what DevOps is, and we're a big believer of the impact that it can make. So we deliver OpenShift as a subscription on-premise, and we also host a service of OpenShift up and running on top of Amazon. It's been going on for a couple of years now, and users have really validated it, because today there's over 1 million applications that have been created over time on OpenShift. But right now, at this instant, it's running over 250,000 apps up and running on OpenShift. And this is just a look at a scroll of sort of statistics last month. So those collective 250,000 apps last month consumed over 13 million Amazon minutes. And I think the most interesting part is sort of, I'm just a big believer in trajectory and trends, right? So each day we average over 2,000 new applications being created on Amazon, on OpenShift. So we want to actually, we have an engineer, Jordan O'Mara, and Jordan's going to show you, is when we're deploying OpenShift inside of customer environments, increasingly they want that on elastic infrastructure. So for us, that means OpenStack. So Jordan's going to show you how things like OpenShift, OpenStack, Heat, Foreman all come together.
I'm Jordan O'Mara, and I'm a developer on OpenStack, and I work on tools that make it easy to install, configure, and provision OpenStack. The demo we're going to show you today is using the Foreman to set up and configure your OpenStack. And you'll notice that the demo only lasts about 1.5 minutes, and that's because it's just extremely easy to use, and that's how long it takes to get OpenStack set up. After we're done setting up OpenStack, we're going to install OpenShift and Heat on our OpenStack, and we're going to show you how to configure that to enable auto-scaling for OpenShift. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the Foreman host console, and this is going to be basically the view that lets you look at the nodes that you're going to provision OpenStack on top of, and then let Foreman do all that work for you. So let's see how that works. The first thing we have to do is basically decide which node is going to be our OpenStack controller. In this case, we've got our horizon.demo.redhat.com machine. So Foreman has a notion of a host group. So a host group applies a set of Puppet modules to a machine. In this case, all of our OpenStack controller modules. Additionally, Foreman gives you the opportunity to override any of these values that we provide for you so that you can customize your installation. For example, we can edit this email address if we wanted to. We could just set whatever we wanted in there, save it, and then when we ran Puppet on the node, Foreman would apply that setting appropriately. And any of the default values we provide for you, you can override. But let's go ahead with the defaults. So we submit that, and we can see that the OpenStack controller host group is applied. Let's go back and look at our host. You don't even have to go through that UI. You can actually just do it right from here. You can select apply host groups from this multi-select box. And in this case, we want to choose our Nova compute node. Submit that. And now the Nova compute node is applied to that demo machine. So as soon as Puppet runs on these boxes, they'll be provisioned. One will have the OpenStack controller node, which has all of your core OpenStack services, and the other has a Nova Compute node, which is ready to be provisioned with instances. Okay, so you just saw us use the foreman to install OpenStack. Now we're going to log into that OpenStack instance, and we're going to use Heat, and we're going to set up OpenShift and show you how to do auto-scaling inside of OpenShift using Heat. So let's get started. We're going to first log into our OpenStack instance that we just set up. As you can see, we have kind of an empty instance here that doesn't have anything, no instances running. And the first thing we're going to do is check out our stacks, which is something that Heat provides, and we're going to set up a stack for OpenShift. And we have an OpenShift template already that's going to set up an OpenShift node and a broker node as well. So you have to fill in a couple pieces of information here, but the important thing that we want to look at is this node count maximum. That is the key that OpenShift is going to use for auto-scaling. And basically, that means that after we install 3 gears on a single node, it's going to request back to OpenStack to spin up another instance for use. Okay, so we can see that the stacks are coming up. So let's go ahead and fast forward through that, and we'll take a look at our instances. And you can see here that we have one OpenShift broker and one OpenShift node. So let's go ahead and take a look at the OpenShift console. And for the demo, we're going to use WordPress instances. Each one of these instances uses 1 gear. So after we create the third one, that should trigger the OpenStack scaling event. So we're going to go ahead and create the first one. And I'm going to fast forward through the creation process. So that finished, and we're going to go ahead and log into our WordPress instance. We have to provide a couple initial configuration values just to get logged into the dashboard. So we have a successful WordPress installation. Now let's go ahead and create 2 more WordPress instances on our OpenShift node. And I'm going to fast forward through this really quickly just because the steps are exactly the same as the first one. So creating this third one should trigger the auto-scaling event inside of OpenStack because we've maximized our gear limit. Let's go back and look at our stacks. And what you're going to see here is that it's now requested the creation of a second OpenShift node. So let's take a look at that inside of our instances. And we can see that there's now 2 instead of 1 OpenShift node group. You just saw us use OpenShift along with Heat inside of OpenStack to allow OpenShift to automatically scale out based on your application's demand. So what you just saw is us using the foreman to get an OpenStack installation started in under 2 minutes, and then using Heat with OpenStack and OpenShift to automatically scale out your applications.
So at the end of last